Think about someone for a moment. Not someone who hurt you or walked away with harsh words and a slammed door. Someone quieter than that. Someone who was simply there, consistently, warmly, without any effort required. And then one day, without a fight or a single clear reason, they weren't. If a name just came to mind, stay with me. Because today, we're talking about the friendships that don't end. They just slowly, quietly fade. There was a time when the friendship required nothing at all. No scheduling. No "are you free this weekend" conversations that somehow never resulted in actually seeing each other. They were just there. The way certain things in your life simply exist without needing maintenance. You fell into each other's company naturally, without ceremony. The friendship had its own rhythm, its own private language built from years of shared experience. The inside jokes that needed no explanation, the silences that never felt uncomfortable, the ability to pick up right where you left off, no matter how much time had passed. You had real history together. Not the surface kind that most relationships offer, but the layered, complicated kind that only comes from showing up for someone across multiple seasons of their life. You had seen each other change, watched each other become, held space for each other through the versions that weren't yet fully formed. There is something genuinely irreplaceable about that, about being known across time, about having someone who remembers who you were before you became who you are. You walked the same path, at the same pace, in the same direction, and it felt like the most permanent thing in your life. What you had wasn't shallow. That's worth saying clearly. When something fades without drama and without a clear reason, there's a temptation to minimize it, to tell yourself it wasn't that deep, to protect yourself from the full weight of the loss by convincing yourself the thing lost wasn't really that significant. Don't do that. This was someone who knew the version of you that existed before life taught you to be careful, before disappointment made you guarded, before you learned that not everyone deserves your completely unfiltered self. They knew your real laugh, not the social one you use to signal that you're engaged and personable. Your actual laugh, the one that comes out when something catches you completely off guard. They knew which memories still carried weight and never brought them up carelessly. They could tell within 30 seconds of seeing your face whether something was off. They knew what you meant even when your words came out wrong. That kind of knowing takes years to build. You cannot rush it or manufacture it. It only comes from the slow accumulation of shared experience until eventually it adds up to something that feels like home. You have that. And somewhere along the way, quietly and without announcement, you stopped having it. The signs were so subtle you almost missed them entirely. That's the particular difficulty of this kind of loss. There's no clear moment of rupture, no obvious before and after. It just begins to happen the way fog rolls in, so gradually that you don't realize you can no longer see until you're already in the middle of it. The first sign was in the conversations. They used to happen spontaneously. A thought would occur to you, and, without thinking, you'd reach for your phone to share it with them. That reflex is one of the more intimate things that can exist between two people. The automatic impulse to share your inner world with a specific person. You notice the reflex changing before anything else. The thought would occur. You'd reach for your phone. Then, a pause. A moment of uncertainty that hadn't been there before. A question mark where there used to be none. Would they find this interesting? Is now a good time? Will this feel out of place? Those questions seem small, but they matter, because you never used to ask them. The second sign was the energy required just to connect. Seeing each other, which used to happen naturally, without planning, started needing effort. Started needing scheduling. Started feeling like something that required a reason rather than something that simply happened because you both wanted it to. You told yourself, this was just adulthood. Calendars fill up. Spontaneity becomes less of a default. You understood. You kept understanding. Even as that understanding started to cost you something. And life, the way it does, kept moving. For both of you, in different directions. A new job that demanded more than expected. A relationship that reorganized the priorities of daily life. A move to a different city. Not dramatic, just a practical decision that happened to create distance between two people who had never needed to manage distance before. Different schedules, different circles, different seasons. Nobody decided to let go. That's what makes this particular kind of loss so disorienting. There's no decision to be angry at. No moment where someone weighed the friendship and found it lacking. Just life, doing what life does. Quietly pulling two people down separate paths without asking permission. The calls went from daily to weekly, weekly to monthly, monthly to, has it really been 4 months? 6? And each time the gap widened, it became a little harder to bridge. Not because the care disappeared, but because long silences carry their own weight. The longer the quiet, the more reaching out starts to feel like it needs an occasion, a birthday, some news, a reason, rather than just the honest truth that you missed them. So you waited for the right moment. And they probably did too. And the right moment never quite arrived. And then one completely ordinary day, it landed. Not during a milestone or a significant moment. Just a random afternoon. A song that shuffled on that you'd listened to together 100 times. A restaurant you drove past that used to be your place. A joke that formed in your head that only they would have understood. And you reached for your phone. And stopped. And did the math. When did we last actually talk? Not a reaction to a story. A quick birthday message. An actual conversation. Real. Unhurried. When was the last time? The answer came heavier than you expected. You scrolled back through the messages, looking for the last real exchange. And found it further back than you were prepared for. Months. You sat with that for a moment. Then you opened a new message and started typing. Hey, I've been thinking about you. And then you stopped. Because what do you say after months of silence? Do you acknowledge the gap? Pretend it isn't there. So you deleted the message, closed the app, put the phone down. And somewhere on the other side of that silence, they probably had almost exactly the same moment, the same reach, the same pause, the same phone put down. Two people, both missing each other, both too far into the distance to say so. That is the quiet, specific difficulty of growing apart. It doesn't take anything from you all at once. It just slowly stops giving. Until one day, the warmth that used to exist between two people lives only in the memory of it. Here is something I think is worth sitting with honestly. Sometimes caring deeply about someone is not enough to keep two people on the same path. And sometimes that has nothing to do with the quality of what you had. Life pulls in directions that have nothing to do with how much two people care for each other. Ambition pulls. Geography pulls. Grief pulls. Growth pulls. Sometimes especially growth, because who you're becoming needs a different kind of company than who you were. None of this is betrayal. None of this is failure. It's simply the honest, unglamorous reality of being human in the world that keeps moving, whether you're ready or not. But here's what I also want to say. You are allowed to grieve this, fully, without minimizing it. It hurts because it mattered. And the fact that it mattered, the fact that you had something real enough to lose, that's not something to feel ashamed of. That's something worth quietly acknowledging. Because not everyone gets a friendship that leaves this kind of mark. Not everyone gets those years of walking the same road with someone who made the walking feel less like effort and more like living. You had that. And even though the path forked, even though the distance grew in the quiet space between two people who both meant to reach out and somehow never did, the years you walked together shaped you. They are written into who you are in ways you're probably still discovering. So let yourself look back. Not with bitterness, and not only with grief, though the grief is real and yours to feel, but with the honest recognition that some of the most important people in your life were never meant to walk the whole road with you. They were there for the part that made you ready for what comes next. And that, even when it's hard to feel it, is something worth holding on to.